And but I come from you guys know I'm a martial artist, right? And in the traditions that I grew up in, the times I trained, if you as a martial arts instructor promoted a student, your name was on their certificate, and that student couldn't do the drills to the appropriate level, that was reflection on you as a teacher, right? And I took that to heart very, very, very deeply. That's why I can count on one hand the number of people I've promoted to black belt, still have fingers left over. And why nobody gets out of this room without their reps. Because if you go out into the world and you can't perform, that's on me. Right? And if my name's on your certificate, it's going to mean something. Right? For you. Because at the end of the day, I can only control what you do when you're in here. And even that's to a limited degree. I can lead you to the water, but I can't make you drink it. Right? So, just commit. Because this is the worst you'll ever be. You're only going to get better. Right? It's only going to get better. And speaking of getting better, let's talk about formal inductions. Is this thing on? Let's see here. Okay. The first induction that we're going to talk about is called the 4 Magic Bullets induction. It should be on page 1 or 2 of your manual. I think. Yeah, 4 magic bullets. We talk about the 4 magic bullets. The 4 magic bullets is a derivative induction. What I mean by that is that the hypnotic operators that are active in 4 magic bullets originally come from a much larger induction known as the Ellman induction. For those of you who don't know, Dave Ellman was a contemporary of Milton Erickson. They came up around the same time. They formed 2 very different but complementary schools of hypnosis. The Ericksonian school was all about conversational linguistics and confusion inductions and very, very subtle indirect forms of suggestion. Very powerful stuff. The Ellman school was more of a very direct, not necessarily authoritarian, but very direct, very obvious, overt inductions. Not a lot of linguistic technique and finesse in that school, but very, very powerful, very, very useful in medical applications. What you've got here is very much a derivative of that. Ellman's biggest contribution was his induction. And the induction, prior to Ellman, there's a concept of phenomena in hypnosis known as fractionation. All right, and you'll hear the term somnambulism used a lot in hypnosis. Somnambulism is a state where it's almost like that dream state, like that state you're in right as you're waking up in the morning, or right as you're going to sleep at night, where you're kind of here, kind of not. The somnambulistic state, for our purposes as a hypnotist, is the state in which the human nervous system is most open to external direction. It's that point where you are more likely to take in a suggestion and it creates your current experience of reality. Many cultures use psychogenics to get into those states, to break down those barriers. And that's for a classically trained hypnotist, that's the operational state, that somnambulistic state. It roughly corresponds to about the theta state in biofeedback. But when people start talking about alpha and theta, and these brainwave states, you have to understand something. Those terms come from the biofeedback community. And they roughly correspond with that dream level state. And somehow, some way it got grafted into hypnosis as somnambulism is analogous to theta. That may not necessarily be true. I have a report, a brainwave studies done on many forms of meditators, all doing some form of altered state work, and they're all accessing theta and alpha, but the different parts of their brain are in those states depending on what type of meditation that they're doing. So it's not as cut and dried as we like to think. So for all intents and purposes, it's not really useful. The somnambulistic state is best gauged by the kind of phenomena you can produce, period. The more open to direction somebody is, then more rapidly these things work. It's really about compliance. And as long as you're getting compliance, you've got what you need. Okay? Now, prior to Ellman, it was believed that in order for somebody to get to a somnambulistic state, you had to hypnotize them multiple times over a long period. And then Ellman, whose father was actually, Ellman's father actually was dying of cancer. And Ellman's father had a friend who was a stage hypnotist. And that hypnotist paid a visit to Ellman's father one day, who was in terrible pain. He went up for an hour, came down an hour later. His father was completely pain-free and remained pain-free until he passed. And that's what sparked Ellman's interest in hypnosis. And Ellman got a hold of this idea of what we call fractionation. Now, fractionation is a phenomena that happens if I put you in a trance, and then I bring you out of it or almost out of it, and I put you back in. When I put you back into that state, you will go deeper than the previous time. It's fractionating. So literally, if I go up and then I bring you down and I reach here, if I bring you up and I bring you down, now you'll go here. Then I bring you up again and I bring you down and you go here. And it was thought that's how you get people into somnambulism. But it was believed up until Ellman that you had to do that over a period of weeks. And Ellman, who was kind of, I guess, a little bit on the impatient side, said, well, what would happen if I just hypnotized them like 4 days in a row? Could I get somebody reliably into a state of somnambulism? And so he tried it. He brought somebody in and he hypnotized them day 1, hypnotized them day 2, day 3. Sure enough, by the 4th time, somnambulism. Right? He goes, well, that's interesting. So it doesn't take weeks. I can do it in days. What would happen if I hypnotized them like 4 times in an hour? And he did it. Sure enough, by the 4th time, 3rd or 4th time, somnambulism. And they said, well, wait a minute. What if I just hypnotize them 4 times in a row? Sure enough, boom, somnambulism. So this idea of fractionation and this idea of reaching somnambulism very, very quickly. Somnambulism has always been a part of hypnosis, but it was really Ellman back in the early part of the 20th century who gave us that big leap in our ability to get somnambulism. Because there's like a certain level of the population that you blow on them, they'll go into a profound trance. Right? It's on a bell curve. The average person is somewhere in the middle. But when you start applying the Ellman inductions, or the Ellman-based inductions, that curve goes dramatically down. It just, everybody goes in. The induction I'm about to share with you will reliably put anyone you do it on into a profound somnambulistic state in under 2.5 minutes. It is the most bulletproof induction I've ever come across. There are convincers and tests built into it through the entire process, so you know exactly where they're at. It's like a video game. There's 4 simple things you need to have a person do. You ask them to do them. You test to see that they've done it. Move on to the next piece. Okay? So that's where we're at. Before we do the actual induction, I want to talk to you about a concept called, you see where it says here, get permission. This brings us to something known as the hypnotic contract. The hypnotic contract comes in 2 varieties. The overt hypnotic contract and the covert hypnotic contract. This class deals primarily with the overt hypnotic contract. The overt hypnotic contract is an agreement between you as the hypnotist or the therapist and the other person's unconscious mind. Right? Contracts have 2 parts. You as the subject agree to follow my instructions without question or pause to the best of your ability with the proper attitude. That attitude will always be, I love the suggestions David is giving me. I know they're going to work. If only it were that simple. Right? I call this like Snow White or Cinderella and her 3 evil sisters. Cinderella being, I love the suggestions David is giving me. I know they're going to work. Right? Unfortunately, there are 3 other attitudes that can sneak in at any given moment and poison your subject's results. First one is, I hate those suggestions. I'm not following them. Fuck you. Right? It's entirely possible that you have the best of intentions. You give somebody a suggestion and they fucking hate it. Right? This often happens, by the way, in abreactive clients, where you use a certain word or a certain context and it triggers them. Like, for instance, let's say that you're taking somebody to the beach and you're describing the waves flowing in and they have a water phobia that you didn't know about. Or a shark attacked them while they were at the beach. Right? And all of a sudden, fuck you, I'm not doing that. Right? Well, guess what? No change happens. Right? Doesn't happen that often, but this is why it's very important to pay attention during your consult to what the client is telling you so you can derive safe linguistics. Does that make sense? Second one is they hear the suggestion from you and they're like, it's not bad. I don't hate it. Don't necessarily like it. I guess it'll work. One of the things you need to understand is that your unconscious mind is the emotional mind. You have to grab them you have to grab the client by the brainstem. It has to be something that they feel emotionally charged for, right? If you can hook them with their emotions and then give them repetition, the unconscious mind is going to grab that and it's going to run with it. But if it's kind of a neutral, lukewarm kind of a suggestion, there's nothing really compelling about it, or you're not putting the emotional energy into it to make it compelling, you're going to need a lot of repetition to make that work. Okay? Doesn't mean you can't do it, because that's how old school hypnosis works. Just blatant repetition for hours. And it works. But there are better ways, or more useful ways, I think. Finally, the one that is, the last one that can really kind of subvert your session is the one that sneaks in without, you'll hear it every now and then. And it says, they hear the suggestions, they're like, oh, I like that suggestion. I hope it works. Hope is the bastard son of try. Okay? The word try, by the way, is one of those words we never use except strategically. Try implies an inability to complete an action. If you take your pen, hold it in your thumb, between your thumb and your forefinger out in front of you, squeeze it really hard. This is not a hypnotic suggestion, but right? Now, pay very close attention to my words and do exactly what I say. Try to drop it. I didn't say drop it. I said try to drop it. See? You can't follow fucking instructions, right? That's what try does. Try implies an inability to complete an action. In a dating context, when you ask someone out and they say they'll try to make it, they ain't showing up. All right? Learn to translate. Okay? So if you give the unconscious mind any form of wiggle room, it'll take it. Okay? Because it sorts for what's familiar. And many times what we're asking the unconscious mind to do isn't familiar. You understand? And that's where hope comes in. Think about the context in which we talk about hope. Hope generally implies that there's a tremendous possibility that something's not going to happen, and there's a tiny chance it might. Well, tremendous possibility something's not going to happen, tiny chance it might. What have you been familiar with for most of your life? This shit that's not going to happen. Guess what it chooses? Right? So be very, very careful with words like try and hope. Okay? When you are working with a client, you want to engender inside of them an attitude of receptivity, hence the acceptable selective thinking. You want to manage the expectations of your clients. You want to make it a very fun, playful, casual, even though you may be dealing with some seriously heinous shit. Shit being a technical term, right? You have to have that very calm, matter-of-fact. You're not callous or you're not flippant. You're not kind of like saying, it's no big deal. It's more like, we can handle this. It's not a problem, right? Or as Stephanie would say, it's fine. Right? It's fine. You'll be fine, right? But that's the energy that you want to have. So when you wrap your mind around this, is that the attitude that we want our clients to have is, I love the suggestions I'm getting. I know this is going to work. Now, that comes across more in your attitude, more in your presuppositions of success, in how you talk about the suggestions and things like that. How you build that into your work is up to you, but that's the thing I want you to understand. But the agreement is, you as the subject agree to follow the instructions of the hypnotist to the greatest degree possible with the proper attitude. Okay? That's your end of it. My job, or if you're the hypnotist, your job as the hypnotist is to do everything in your power to get the change the person came to you for, that you've agreed to help them get, and keep them safe. As Hippocrates, the Hippocratic Oath, first do no harm. Keep your subjects safe. Create safety for your clients first. Because if you're not creating safety, you're not going to get very far. Okay? We talk about that. There's a section in your manual called resourcing. It's right under abreaction. We'll talk about resourcing tomorrow, even though you've actually learned a huge piece of the mechanics for resourcing already. It's the very first thing I taught you. We'll elaborate more on that tomorrow. But resourcing is extremely important, but your job... Now, here's the interesting thing about the hypnotic contract. Once you have it, so you say, Seth, would you like to be hypnotized?
Yes.
Would you like to be hypnotized by me?
Oh, yeah.
That's an important little statement, because sometimes they want to be hypnotized by not by you, motherfucker. Right? And by the way, every now and then you're going to work with you may work with somebody in your class that just doesn't, you just don't feel comfortable working with. It's okay to say, look, I'm not comfortable, I'd rather work somewhere else, or not right now, or something. It's okay to say that. And I hope if somebody says that to you, you're not offended. You can't control that shit. Professionally, if someone walks in to your treatment room and you have that icky feeling that makes you want to run screaming, but they pass all your tests, you're more or less committed to working with them if they've done everything you've asked them to do, right? But you can still say no if you don't feel it's a right fit, right? Sometimes the biggest lessons for us as therapists come from the people who make our teeth like grind or clench. I've had a bunch of people like that, and I've learned tremendous things about myself and about the processes that I had to deal with. So one of the most challenging things for us to do as therapists, but we need to understand it, both as people and as therapists, is that our greatest growth will always be running towards the things that make us want to run away. The things, our greatest areas of growth, our greatest insights about who we are, what we believe, what our potentials are always hidden behind the fear. They're hidden behind the pain, behind the discomfort. When you become comfortable being uncomfortable, you're on your way. And that's really what we're talking about. For this class, you're going to deal with some heavy-duty stuff. You're going to learn how to deal with it. You're going to get used to the shit, for lack of a better word. And it's going to become just another day at the office. It won't always be comfortable, right? But it will be useful, and it will be worthwhile. And that's the point. Whether you're doing this from the therapist side or whether you're doing this from the subject side, your greatest growth is always behind the pain. It's always behind the fear. It's hidden, like fog hides details. The information you need to take the next step is always behind that. Okay? So, regardless of what your reason is or where you're going to go with this material, understand that and just accept it. As the Navy SEALs used to call it, embrace the suck. Right? Pain is a sign of weakness leaving the body. That's true enough to be true. Right? That being said, nobody who comes into your office is broken. They're all perfectly working human beings. The reason they're in that chair is because nature did what it was supposed to do. It activated a mechanism that allowed them to survive a situation that was outside of their control, that was overwhelming to them, and it got them through it. And it got them to your chair. That's not somebody who's broken. That's somebody whose system did what it was supposed to do. But the feelings they have make them think they're broken. Right? And you have to reframe that for them. You have to make them understand that. Does that make sense? Okay. That being said, an interesting thing about the hypnotic contract is once you have it, anything you tell the subject will put them in trance will. So we have this thing called the blah, blah, blah induction that we do, where once I've got the contract, I'll say, what's your name again? That's fine. I've done everything from Eduardo to Ernesto to... I'll just call you E for short. There we go. Right? If I get a hypnotic contract with E and I say, E, I'm going to look at you 3 times. First time I look at you and go, blah, your eyes are going to get really, really heavy. It's going to be like there's sand in this. Like you're going to want to close them, but you won't. But you'll feel that need growing inside of you. The second time I look at you and go, blah, your eyes will become so heavy. That's right. Your eyes will become so heavy that they just won't want to. You'll still struggle to keep them open, but you'll feel that desire to close your eyes getting stronger and stronger. The third time I look at you and go, blah, your eyes will just want to close all the way down. It'll be so overwhelming. You'll just want to relax and let go. And he's already gone. right? And it'll just, look, the minute I took his attention away, his defenses went down. right? He's fighting it right now. You can see how glassy his eyes are, right? All I did was describe it. Right?
All right.
1, 2, 3, eyes open, feeling good. All right? Once you have the contract, pretty much anything you say puts the person in trance will tend to put the person in trance. It's really cool, right? There's another side, it's called the covert hypnotic contract. And the way that works is you intentionally connect with somebody through their unconscious mind. You give them a suggestion or a direction, they follow it. If they follow the instruction, you've got a contract. That's the covert hypnotic contract. We cover that aspect of it in our influence classes like CPI, killer influence, CPI 2, 3, or 4, right? But we can get that just out in the real world as well, right? We give somebody a direction, law of compliance takes over, and boom, you're off to the races. But you have to be able to see the effects of trance. And that's one of the things that we need to talk about a little bit. When people go into trance, depending on how you've tranced them out and the context and the environment, their trance will look different. In this context, you're going to see what we call the hypnotic mask. The face is going to become very relaxed. They'll get 10 years younger. Many times, they'll have a subjective sensation of being hot or cold because the capillaries and the blood vessels dilate as you go into trance. And so blood flows to the surface, and that temperature differential may give them the impression of being cooler or hotter. You may see the face flush a little bit. A lot of times when you look at the eyes, what you'll see is what we call frivolation. Frivolation is that fluttering of the eyelids. All right, not to be confused with rapid eye movement. It's different. Rapid eye movement, or REM, is usually if someone's dreaming, their eyes are like all over the map. When someone goes into somnambulism, you get frivolation as well, or not frivolation, a rapid eye movement, but it's different. Rapid eye movement when someone's in somnambulism tends to be very lateral, like a pendulum. You'll see the eyeballs moving beneath the eyelids, but it'd be much more rhythmic. Whereas someone's dreaming, they move up, move down, all over the place, right? It can also be this way too, because it's very similar states. Okay, many times the eyes will roll back into the head, like half the eyelids will be open. You'll see like zombie eyes poking out at you, right? So these are all things that you may notice as you guide people through the process. I wouldn't worry about them too much. What are you doing over here? You're giving me zombie eyes, right? In your book, there's something called the Spiegel eye roll. The Spiegel eye roll was something discovered by Dr. David Spiegel. He was a researcher at Stanford. He made the discovery that people who could roll their eyes all the way back up inside their head tended to be natural somnambulists. And he could gauge a person's degree of natural somnambulism by how far they could roll their eyes back. He turned it into an induction. This is why a lot of times a lot of meditative practices will have you roll your eyes up and look at your third eye. It puts you in a somnambulistic state, right? If you've ever seen DNA theta healers, the good ones, when they start accessing theta, those eyes roll all the way. They look like looking through the top of their fucking head, right? It's not coincidental that theta healing was created by a hypnotist. Yeah, Vienna Steibel's husband was a hypnotist. Yeah, right. I'm certified in DNA theta healing, advanced theta, and manifestation techniques. Very, very triggering class. It's crazy. Anyway, so always start with getting the contract. I'm the hypnotist, you're the subject. My job is to get you the change you came for and keep you safe no matter what. Your job is to follow my instructions without question or pause to the best of your ability. Would you like to be hypnotized? Would you like to be hypnotized by me?
Yes.
Perfect, let's begin, right? And now, once I have that, and what you want to look at, remember I said the unconscious mind always answers first? Pay attention to what they do before the words come out of their mouth. If you say, would you like to be hypnotized by me? And they go, yes. All right? It's hard for me to do that incongruently. All right? Be very aware of that and inoculate or deal with that. Build more comfort before moving forward. Right? If they show any hesitation, engage in more comfort building. Right? Maybe some color breathing. You know, that's why I do the pleasure thing. Because once they're feeling pleasure, they want more of it. They'll do whatever I ask them to do just to get more of another hit. Remember that blue energy you like so much? Look. All right? Yeah, they'll get very shiny. When they come out of trance, first of all, you'll see a lot of, if you've done your work well, they'll be very shiny. Their eyes will have a lot of light to them. But also they'll tend to be very bloodshot, like they smoke 2 or 3 doobies, right? And a lot of that is because, once again, as you relax, the capillaries and the blood vessels in your eyes relax also, and so more blood flows in and you can see them more, right? So you can be pretty sure if they open their eyes and there's a lot of red there, they were deep, right? Many times, people don't realize how deep they've gone until they've come out. You don't realize you're on the fast track, right? So don't even try to gauge where you're at as you're going through the process. Just commit yourself to it and enjoy it, because there's going to be a huge endorphin release when you do that. Okay. So that being said, let's talk about the 4 magic bullets. 4 magic bullets has 4 simple steps. Relax the eyelids. Test it. Oh, this sounds familiar. Right? Relax the body. Test it. Fractionate the eyes. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then relax the mind. Okay? Those are the 4 steps. They fit on an index card. Right? Everything else is whatever words you want to use to hit those 4 steps. Right? Paul, can I use you? All right. Good. You just happen to be convenient. All right. Where's my chair? So every piece of the 4 magic bullets is a command or an instruction or direction and a test. Paul, would you like to be hypnotized?
Sure.
Would you like to be hypnotized by me?
Yeah.
Excellent. Close your eyes for me. Take a deep breath in. Let that breath out with a sigh. Deeper and deeper with every breath and every beat of your heart. Paul, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'd like you to just focus all of your attention on the lids of your eyes. I'd like you to relax those tiny muscles in your eyelids. And I'd like you to keep relaxing them more and more and more until they're so relaxed they just don't want to work anymore. And Paul, when you know you've got them so relaxed that they just don't want to work anymore, all I want you to do is give them a quick test just to be sure. That's excellent. Now stop testing. Spread that relaxation from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes. Deeper and deeper with every breath you take and every beat of your heart. Just let go. That's it. Now, Paul, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to pick up your left hand with the fingers of my left hand. I don't want you to help me or hinder me in any way. All I want you to do, Paul, is let that hand hang, loose, limp, like a wet dish rag or an overcooked noodle. Let it fall onto your lap or the side of the chair, only at the rate and speed that you can double, triple, maybe even quadruple this sense of physical relaxation. Want it to happen? Expect it to happen. Enjoy the process of allowing it to happen. Loose and limp like a wet dishcloth. Perfect. Paul, all the way down deeper and deeper. Now in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to open and close your eyes. Each and every time you open and close your eyes, all I want you to do is allow that relaxation to double, triple, maybe even quadruple that sense of relaxation. Want it to happen, expect it to happen. Enjoy the process of allowing it to happen. Open those eyes all the way up, close those eyes all the way down, deeper and deeper and deeper still. Opening those eyes all the way up, closing those eyes all the way down, 10 times deeper. Every breath you take, every beat of your heart, just going deeper and deeper and deeper still. Opening those eyes all the way up, closing those eyes all the way down. Fantastic, Paul. You're doing amazing. Now in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to relax your mind just as deeply as we've relaxed your body. We're going to do that in a very special way. In a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to ask you to begin to imagine the alphabet. backwards, starting with the letter Z. With each and every breath you take and each and every beat of your heart, all I want you to do is relax those letters completely out of your mind. Allow them, if you will, to become smaller, darker, harder to see. Turn the volume all the way down, 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 deeper and deeper, down, down, down. Now, Paul, I can't do this for you. Only you can allow this to happen. And when you know they're gone, and you're as deeply relaxed in mind as you are in body, all I want you to do is allow one of your fingers to begin to float up with honest, unconscious movements to let me know, and we'll continue with the next part of our process. Drifting, dreaming, letting that finger float up with honest, unconscious movements. Perfect. Now just drop that finger and go even deeper, even more powerfully into a wonderful, juicy state of trance, a trance that you really enjoy, a trance that feels really good. Now, we've finished the formal level of our induction, Paul, and because you've been such a great help, a great demo subject, you've followed all of the instructions, you've obeyed all the commands, you've passed all the tests, I'd like to give you a special gift, special prize. Now, Paul, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to think that maybe there was a time in your life when you felt the most amazing, thrilling, fulfilling, all-encompassing pleasure imaginable. A pleasure that if any chance you got to do it, man, you would be on it in a heartbeat. You couldn't wait, and every time you did it was so awesome, maybe you found yourself making up excuses to go do it again. Now, I'm not going to ask you what kind of pleasure that was, what was involved, what substances may have been, whether it was legal or illegal. I don't care, Paul. All I care about is that when you remember that feeling and how good it was and how much you like to do it, when you see what you see and you hear what you hear, you smell and you taste what you smell and you taste, there's an amazing feeling that you get. Feeling of absolute, that's right, absolute pleasure. And you know what? There's a place in your body where those feelings start, where they grow, where they spread from. Now, I'm not going to ask you to point to where you feel it. That might be private. I don't care about where it starts. But as you focus on that area, you're going to notice that there's a color. Maybe even a series of colors connected to those amazing feelings. I'm curious, Paul, what color or colors that might be for you. First impression.
Psychedelic.
Psychedelic, baby, yeah. I want you to imagine a big ball of that psychedelic energy floating above your head. I want you to notice how the feelings in your body shift and changes with every breath you take and every beat of your heart. That ball of psychedelic energy begins to grow, begins to expand, begins to fill the entire room from floor to ceiling, from wall to wall, and all points in between. Notice how it wraps itself around you like an amazing blanket of pleasure. A cocoon, a shield, a suit of armor, insulating you, protecting you from all less than pleasurable experiences, real or imagined, while at the same time flooding your mind, flooding your body, flooding your spirit with everything it most wants, it most needs in an infinite, ever-expanding and unlimited supply. And when you know you've got that, breathe those colors through your entire being. Let it fill you up like water fills up a bottle, like fluid fills up a test tube, like hot air or helium fills up a balloon. Anchor it in, Paul, so fully, so completely, no force in the universe can turn it off or take it away, not even you. When you know you've got that, you know it's locked in, test it. Try to turn that shit off and notice what happens instead. What do you notice, brother? It's there? Excellent. Now, Paul, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I want you to notice something. I'm going to give you a very special gift. From this moment forward, Paul, each and every time you hypnotize somebody, each and every time you are completely hypnotized by another person, this pleasure will come flooding back in. Right at the moment that you've completed the hypnotic process, the moment you brought somebody out of trance, boom, that wonderful psychedelic energy will surge all throughout your mind, all throughout your body, twice as strong as the time before. And each and every time you successfully hypnotize somebody, boom, it's going to come flooding back. Boom, it's going to double and triple in size and strength, double and triple in force and magnitude. And each and every time you are successfully hypnotized as the subject, the moment you emerge from trance and it's safe to do so, boom, your unconscious mind is going to give you another hit of that amazing psychedelic pleasure. Boom, it's going to double and triple in size and strength. Boom, double and triple in force and magnitude, getting stronger and stronger and stronger. That's my gift to you. And what's going to happen, Paul, as a byproduct of this amazing process, is your skills, your abilities, your confidence to hypnotize people anytime, anywhere is going to magnify. It's going to amplify. You're going to move through the world with more confidence, more charisma, more ability to exert your hypnotic skills under any circumstances and get the results that you want as the hypnotist and as the subject. Your hypnotic abilities will blossom and bloom, and every time you successfully complete a hypnotic process, either as the hypnotist or as the subject, boom, that pleasure is going to come flooding all throughout your mind, all throughout your body, twice as strong as the time before, leaving you hungry for more, ready to go out and get more good stuff because you deserve it. You've done the work, you're following the instructions, you're obeying the commands. It's just the way it works. So in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'd like you to use your imagination for me. I'd like you to imagine that you're out in class or out in the world, and you go out and you find somebody and you successfully hypnotize them. And as soon as you're done hypnotizing them, boom, here comes that pleasure. Oh my God, does it feel good? That's right. That's right. Now I want you to imagine you're out in the world. Maybe you're at a training. Maybe you're practicing with somebody and you're the subject and you go through a hypnotic process. You come out of it, and as soon as you come out of it, boom, there's that feeling, locking everything in, locking all the changes, amplifying, strengthening, making it better than the time before. I want you to go ahead and cycle through as many of those moments as you can, and notice how each and every time you do, as soon as you come out of it, boom, there's that pleasure, boom, there's that power, there's that sense of confidence and skill and ability to become an unstoppable, all-powerful hypnotist, able to hypnotize anyone, anytime, anywhere, for any reason. Take all the time you need until it becomes so locked in. Just the thought of hypnotizing, well, boom, there it is. That's what I'm talking about. That's my gift to you, Paul. From this moment forward, you're going to become an unstoppable hypnotist, and you're going to have that huge rush of pleasure in exactly the way you most want it each and every time you hypnotize someone. Each and every time you are successfully hypnotized, that rush of pleasure will double, triple, maybe even quadruple, leading to greater skill, greater ability, more of what you want exactly the way you want it for all the right reasons. Now, in a moment, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. When I reach the number 5, you'll emerge from this process. Now, I'm not sure if you remember what's supposed to happen when you come out of a hypnotic process. Number 1, feel yourself returning to this place we call reality, bringing with you a brand new reality, a reality where your neurology is primed, to fully locked and loaded to make you the most powerful hypnotist you can be, maybe even stronger than you thought you were able to do. Number 2, all of my suggestions from me to you, from you to your own other than conscious mind, are now 10 times more powerful, 100 times more permanent, 1,000 times more thrilling, fulfilling, and satisfying than ever before, embraced, held, locked into that part of your mind, body, and soul that most wants, desires, can implement, facilitate, express these changes in all the ways that give you the life and the lifestyle that you want, the way that you want it, by your standards and your definitions. Number 3, always at least 3 ways to overcome any situation, obstacle, or circumstance. Always at least 3 solutions to any problem you need to solve, and your all-powerful unconscious mind will now easily, effortlessly, and automatically generate those solutions and implement them in the quickest, easiest, most effective way for the good of yourself and all concerned. Number 4, because it's all for you, Paul. You've made the investment. You've made the journey. You've followed the instructions. You've obeyed the commands. You've tested the results. You've most certainly earned the rewards and the right to keep them. It's your reality, it's your truth, it's your life, and you're going to live it to the fullest, starting now. On the next count, you can emerge from this process, bringing all that psychedelic goodness with you. Head clear, mind clear, soul clear, thinking, acting with self-assurance, feeling good all over, glad to be alive, ready to thrive. Wait for it. Wait for it. 5.
Whoa.
You sweating. Imagine that. Big round of applause for the man. Have a stay here. All right. So what you saw was 2 parts. First was the induction. The second was what I call the hypno cookie. All right. Hypno cookies are reward systems we put in place to reward you for doing hypnosis, both as the subject and as the hypnotist. Remember, the behavior that gets rewarded gets repeated. The behavior that gets repeated gets reinforced. So you want to set up reward systems right from the get-go. That's one of the reasons why we do pleasure during the consultation. It makes them want to go further. It makes them want to come back. Okay? And it gives them an experience that, whoa, something did happen. Right? Very, very powerful. And there's never any overt trance. Besides the heavy hand, light hand, there's never an obvious induction. And so, well, shit, he didn't even hypnotize me. Right? And I got this, right? So everything is loaded in your favor as the hypnotist, right? You're hypnotizing them from the moment they walk in the friggin' room. They just don't know it, right? But a couple of things. So you saw when I got to the eye fractionation part with eye open and closure, that's called the disguised fractionation test. If you paid attention to how I did it, I had open your eyes, close your eyes, open your eyes, close your eyes, open your eyes, close your eyes. You break up the rhythm, because one of the things we want to test for at this stage is, are they internally directed or externally directed? If you have them open and close their eyes, and they close their eyes before you tell them to, they're driving. That means they're not following instructions. When or if that happens, you call them on it, and you either bring them out, start again, or you talk a little bit more, you go back to the fractionation test, and you make sure they're with you in real time. Right? Each and everything I did had a direction, a test, and then we moved on. 4 basic steps. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Relax your eyelids to the point where they just won't work. When you're sure they're relaxed to the point where they just won't work, test them to be sure. Then stop testing. Spread that relaxation from the top of your head all the way down to the tips of your toes. In a moment, I'm going to pick up your left hand. Don't try to help me or hinder me in any way. Just let it drop loose and limp like a rag doll. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to open and close your eyes. Each and every time you close your eyes, I want you to double, triple, quadruple that sense of physical relaxation. Open your eyes. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. Close your eyes. Open your eyes. Close your eyes all the way down. In a moment, I'm going to ask you to relax your mind just as deeply as you relaxed your body. I just want you to begin to imagine the alphabet backwards, Paul. Keep relaxing those letters out of your mind. Make them smaller, darker, harder to see, till they're so relaxed they just don't want to work anymore. When you know you've got them that relaxed, allow one of your fingers to float up with honest, unconscious movements to let me know, and we'll continue with the next part of our process. Perfect. Now stop testing, flow that relaxation, go deeper and deeper. In a moment, Paul, not yet, but in just a moment, I'm going to count from 1 to 5. When I reach the number 5, you'll emerge from this process, bringing all of my previous suggestions into reality with you, amplifying them 10 times stronger than they were a moment ago, feeling them in every way that's wonderful. 1, feel yourself coming back. Number 2, moving closer now, moving back to this place we call reality. 3, almost there. 4, you know what happens when we reach the number 5. Wait for it, wait for it. Building, 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 wait for it. 5. Now, you just saw 2 versions of the 4 magic bullets. The bells and whistles version, and the no holds barred, read it off the bullet point, read it off the index card version. Which do you think was deeper?
Probably the second one.
For 2 reasons. A, generally speaking, the faster you do the induction, the deeper they go. Second of all, it was the second time it's actually the 4th or 5th time I've hypnotized him. Because the element induction is actually like 4 inductions at once. And deep, it's this is why it's so powerful. It's not based on the person's belief system. It's based on compliance, and it's based on their physiology. If I hooked somebody up to an MRI or a CT scan, and I put them through each of those phases, you would see the parts of their brain start to change. The blood flow would change. It's a physiological process. It's not about whether they believe it or not. It's about what they do with their body. That's one of the reasons this is so powerful. 4 simple steps. You give simple, clear instructions. You test to see that they've done it. You move on to the next level. Relax the eyelids to the point where they just don't work. Test it. Spread the relaxation. Lift the arm. Drop it. Open and close the eyes. Monopolize their field of vision, because just like before, we don't want them being visually distracted. This, by the way, is also a suggestion. If you start, if you notice how you get that heavy feeling, right? He can't like watch those hands all going, right? That's a suggestion, okay? Relaxing the letters out of their mind, unless you're a professional drunk who trains to crash drunk tests, most people don't memorize the alphabet backwards, right? So the minute they start imagining the alphabet backwards, they'll usually hit T. By the time they hit T, they're done. It's too much brain power, right? So whether they voluntarily lose the letters or they just go because you can't fucking remember it, I still win, right? When you know they're gone, allow one of your fingers to float up with honest unconscious movements. Now, there's 2 ways that the unconscious or the neurology can respond. You have conscious movement and unconscious movement. The process we're talking about is called ideomotor signaling. A conscious mind movement, take your finger and just move it up and down. See how smooth and fluid that is? That's conscious mind movement. Unconscious movement, if you were close enough to see, looks a lot like this, because it's a different set of muscles moving that finger. Okay, so that jerky. Now sometimes, this is no pun intended, it looks like a little miniature erection. They'll go boing, right, with the finger. Very rare, but it does happen. When that happens, I'll usually deepen them a little bit more just to make sure I've got the unconscious mind fully engaged. A lot of times, as they go deeper, it may take a while for that finger to move, because they are so deep. They think they're moving the finger, and it hasn't reached the surface yet. Right? You'll be people doing this. They'll swear their hands didn't move, and they're like this. Right? There's such a broad range of how people express themselves in trance. It's almost useless to try and generalize. What you can count on is if they're complying to your suggestions, you're doing what you need to be doing. And that goes with testing. You hear this phrase a lot. Keep doing it until it's impossible to go back the way it was. And when you know it's done, nod your head to let me know. Or when you know it's done, try to go back to the old way of being and notice what happens instead. These are tests that I throw in at random moments. It's a self-validation mechanism, because once they've gone through a process a certain amount of times and they can't go back, their neurology has grabbed a hold of that program and is now making it the norm. Okay, so it simultaneously convinces them, and it also puts the burden of change on the client. Because if a client tells you that they've done a process, but they really haven't, and then they don't get the change, whose fault is it? Exactly. And so this is one of the reasons that we do this. Remember, contracts have 2 sides. It is impossible for you as a hypnotist to fail unless you quit. I mean that wholeheartedly. It is impossible for you to fail unless you give up. Right? The client will probably give up before you do. And that's okay, because then the burden is on them. Right? But they won't fail either if you're doing things the way I'm showing you. Because again, if you've done your consultation right, if you've gone through the 4 magic bullets, they're already in a profoundly neuroplastic state. They have high expectations of success, and you're starting with things that are very easy for them to accomplish and create and calibrate. Tomorrow, when we start going through the therapeutic processes, we'll show you what we call the general change work silo that we use, which starts with general negativity clearing, specific negativity, and then primary interventions. It's a shorter silo than identity by design, but still extremely powerful. But that's where we're going. So what's going to happen now, if it's okay with TJ, I have to jet out of here around 6-ish, but I want you guys to practice your 4 magic bullets inductions. If possible, I'd like you guys to go a little bit later tonight, and I'd like you to get at least 3 reps in as the subject, 3 reps in as the client. And if you want to throw in that hypno cookie, which means just anchoring pleasure to everything hypnosis related, right? If you're wondering what to say or how to say it, think about what you would want somebody to say to you to program you to associate massive pleasure and change and ability, and give it to the client. right? It's really, really simple. Have them close their eyes, relax the tiny muscles, spread the relaxation, drop the hand, open and close the eyes 3 times, have them relax the alphabet out of their mind, have them give you a finger signal to let you know it's done, and then you just deepen. When you do this, you will put 9, 10, well, unless you've screwed up during the consultation and missed something, you will reliably put 9 to 10 out of 10 people into a somnambulistic state the first time. Now, when you put them into that somnambulistic state, they're not deep in somnambulism. They're right at the border usually. So it's usually important to deepen them. Deepening them can be a simple 1 to 5 count or a 5 to 1 count. It can be any transition metaphor that you want to use, whatever you want to do, right? The color breathing works really well for this stuff, okay? Especially for the states and things like that, okay? So I'd like you to go to at least 6:30. If you can go to 7, that would be optimal, right? And then we'll start first thing tomorrow with reviewing 4 magic bullets and then building on that. Questions on what I've shown you so far? No? You've been hypnotizing people all day. This is just a more formal version. Yes? You want to give him the microphone?
Just a question on the color breathing. Are you using that to deepen them or as the cookie or
Yes.
both?
I can use it. You're going to find out that color breathing is one of the most versatile tools we have. But for this particular induction, I'm using it to, once I access the body feelings and I turn it into a color, that color combined with breath, combined with kinesthetics, is a huge, huge magnifier to experience. And because it's largely, once you turn it into a color, it becomes very context-free, which is kind of cool. When we start talking about trauma, we'll talk about a phenomenon known as alexithymia. Alexithymia is a condition that happens where people experience a certain feeling or range of feelings that they don't have a word for. And because they don't have a word for it, they can't process it. Okay? When you turn a feeling into a color, it's something they understand, now they can process it. Okay? Book you want to pick up for this is called The Body Keeps the Score by Basil van der Kolk, Vanderkolk. It's 3 words. Van der Kolk. He's a Dutch guy, right? He's one of the leading authorities on trauma in the body. So for those, this is what this class is about, so you need to go deep level with this. Okay? So it is 5:54. I'm going to give you 30 minutes to do this. Now, the second time I did it with Paul, how long did it take? Literally like 2 minutes, right? That's if you're slow. Right? Now, the secret to this is the faster you do it, the deeper they go. But here's what you need to understand. It's not how fast you can go. It's how fast the client can go and still effectively follow your instructions. So if it takes somebody 10 minutes to do your instructions, then that's fast for them. Won't be, because I've been hammering you with this, whether you guys realized it or not. I don't do the demo for Paul's sake. I do it to install this shit in you, right? Half of you were like, right? That's the point. It's already in you. Now you just got to bring it out. Unconsciously installing stuff is easy. Every NLP trainer is taught how to do that. The problem is they don't teach you the other half, which is how to get it out. You got to build the recall pathway. If you don't build the recall pathway, it stays latent in the system, and you only get what passed through your conscious mind. That's been my experience. Other people will argue with me left and right. I don't give a fuck. Because if they can produce the results I produce, or my students produce, I'm coming to their training. Right? I'm a little competitive. Right? Give him a big round of applause. He did great. Were there any other questions before I turn you loose on each other? All right. Hypnotize each other, motherfuckers.